Hello folks, I'm just testing that the audio is working this week before we go live. So what you should be seeing is a little preview window underneath the counter, and you should be able to hear me talking. If you can hear me talking, if somebody could just confirm that everything's working, that would be great. Meanwhile, I'll go back to my cup of tea. And good evening, folks. Welcome to this week's live stream from Ian's studio. Great to have you all with me, and great that we've got so many people online already. There's currently 18 people watching, so that's good news. That's quite good actually at the very early stage, and we've got at least I think a couple of newbies on the stream tonight. So welcome to you. Particularly welcome to Amanda, who I originally met on one of the cruises that I did. So welcome to the live stream, Amanda. Great that you're here, and welcome everyone else as well. So let's get things started on this. So for the benefit of anyone who is new watching this for the first time, these are weekly shows every Sunday night at 7:30, live from my studio. They're up here on YouTube for, well, as turning out several months. They were meant to be weekly up there, but I am going to be going through the editing process, trimming them all down, and there will be cut down versions left on YouTube. Full versions will go into my academy, but I will be posting extracts both here on the Ian Studio channel and over on my other two channels as well, the Learn Lightroom channel and the Travel Photography channel. So do make sure you subscribe to those. There should be links to them down below this video. So if you're into travel photography, then sign up. Subscribe to the travel channel, and if you're into editing in Lightroom, subscribe to that as well, and you'll get updates of when videos come online there. Ask questions in the chat. That's what it's there for. It's a live chat. I will try and respond to them. I have a couple of spots within the show for Q&A, and I will deal with things which are in the chat when that happens. Just one thing, just to let you know, folks, I'm going to try something new with the live chat tonight, and that is when I start talking about it, I'm going to display it on the screen. So if there is anyone who doesn't want their name embedded on the screen, then just don't type into the chat on there. I'll put that warning up now. If you do want to see your name on there, when it's up on the screen, type away, because your name and your comment will appear on the screen, embedded in the video for all posterity. So ask your questions there. If you're watching this on the replay, then put your questions in the comments field. Actually, if you are watching this on the replay, just put something in the comments field, just so I know you've watched it, because that does help me gauge whether it's worth leaving things up there. At the moment, it looks like I'm getting reasonable views on the replays, but it's always hard to know on that. Please subscribe, as I said. Please comment and go like this video. Go on. At the moment, how many people have liked it? Only 6 people have liked it. Go and hit the like button. You know it's the right thing to do. And of course, if you find the shows helpful, do let other people know, because it'd be great to increase the audience on this, so that we can help more photographers. Right. There is an associated Facebook group with this live stream. That's the detail on the screen behind me. You should find the link down below as well. I think most of you that I can see in the chat are already members of the Facebook group, but if you're not, please join there, because the discussion carries on during the week in there. Great place to share your photos, and I usually set a theme which ties in with the Sunday night live stream. So this last week, people have been posting flower images, which is what I'm talking about tonight. And lots of other things going on there. I also use it to let people know of any last minute things. So, for example, in the week just gone, I did an impromptu live stream on was it Wednesday night? I think it was Wednesday night. And I just decided on the day, right, I'm going to do this because I need to test some things out, find out what's working with the laptop, what isn't. And I had 10 people watching it. So that's the place you will find out about things like that. On there. I do have a weekly-ish newsletter. Didn't send out one this week because I did one on Monday. So I'll try and get one out midweek for the coming week with a blog on there. Again, links down below. So what have we got on the show this week? We've got a news section, very short news section. We're talking about flowers and flowerscapes as our main theme, but we've got some of our standard stuff on there, such as the Lightroom 3-minute edit challenge. And your images, lots and lots of your images tonight, because you've all been very busy posting stuff onto the Facebook group this week, and I've gone through and I've got images just about from everyone who posted on the Facebook group this week. Not all the images, I think it was Gary who did a post of about 30 odd flower images, and then there's John who's posting loads and loads on there. So I haven't been able to pick all of your images, folks, but just one or two from each person. And I'll provide some feedback on there, trying to make it constructive to help you with your photography. Some I've already posted online, some I will deal with tonight as part of the show. And don't forget, any questions, stick them in the live chat. Right, so the news, the big news for those of you who've been following these live streams over the last few weeks, my laptop, the one that's been giving me all the grief on the live streams, it's no more. We are running this on a new laptop. I ordered it on Thursday. Friday it arrived. Yesterday I did the installation on it of all the software, tested out a few things, configured it for doing the live stream. I wasn't expecting to be doing the live stream on it tonight, but everything appears to be working. Fingers crossed on that. Just to say, I'm not going to try and do anything remotely taxing with it tonight. So I'm not going into Lightroom or anything like that. I just want to do a basic live stream and make sure all that is working before I try anything a bit more taxing. I just want to say thanks also to Rick for the advice that he's given me throughout this process of getting the laptop replaced and upgraded. And for those who are technically minded, it's an 8-core 16-thread machine with 32 gig of memory in there and the latest RTX 2070 GPU graphics processor with 8 gig of memory on there. It's about as fast as you can get with laptops, and I am really, really happy with it. Rendering videos, I had one which had taken 7 minutes 45 seconds to render. With the new laptop, 48 seconds. That's the kind of improvement I'm seeing. So hopefully I should be able to run Lightroom, do the streaming, be able to go into Photoshop with no problems while streaming, and run a second camera and all that sort of thing that failed miserably last Sunday and didn't work particularly well on Wednesday when I did the test. So I'm going to give it another test. I am going to try it out Wednesday night at 7:30 here in the studio, one of my impromptu live streams. So if you're around and want to see whether we can get 2 cameras going, whether we can do Photoshop as well as Lightroom and all that, then join me 7:30. I'll post a link in the Facebook group for it to let you know. Now, the question is, what am I going to live stream about on Wednesday? I'm not going to do this sort of sitting at the desk. I'm going to do something like I did last week, an actual shoot, so I don't have to prepare too much. But I've got 3 ideas. Either I'll do another focus stacking thing because we had a few problems with that last week. Maybe I ought to do that again so that you can see it all work. I can show you things like the MIDI controller on there. I can show the focusing rails properly and things like that. But I don't want to repeat the same sort of lighting setup. Perhaps do something high key on there. That's one idea. I could do some smoke pattern photography on there, or it's I needed to correct that. It's not a military medal, it's a service medal that I need to photograph, and I could go through how I'm going to do the photography on that as something different, sort of almost product type photography on there. So if you have a preference, folks, and you think you might be joining me on Wednesday, put in the chat which of those three, high focus image model type thing, smoke patterns, or a medal photography on that. Any one of those, if you have a preference, stick it in the chat, and that's what I will do on Wednesday as I test out all the gear and see whether it works with the new machine. So right, Q&A. As I said, get your questions into the chat. I'll try and pick up on those. Right, let's have a look what's in the chat at the moment. Here we go. This is the new display. Right. Well, I've already got it down here. We've had one request for the smoke patterns come through. That's from Gary. So that's top of the list at the moment with one vote. No questions that I'm aware of in chat at the moment for me to look at on there. So let's go back on here. Just to say, there is a delay with questions, so don't expect me to respond in absolute real time on there. So just get things in quickly. Get your questions in, and I'll pick up on them at the end of the show when I do part 2 of the Q&A. I did have a question come in a few weeks ago. I keep referring back to this one. This one was from Peter asking me to do a session on sensor cleaning. Now I've got the upgrade to the camera. Assuming Wednesday's test works okay, I'm hoping to do the sensor cleaning possibly even next Sunday on that. So I haven't forgotten about it. It was one of the Q&A questions that's been sort of pushed on one side for a little while on there. The other Q&A one that came in, right, talking of Q&A, a couple of questions over here. We can see lots of people wanting to do the smoke patterns. In fact, I think it's the only one. Richard has asked how much was the laptop. It was, put it this way, it was very expensive, Richard. If you look up the model online, you will see on that. Terry is asking, saying he can't make Wednesday evening. Yeah, the recording will stay on YouTube as with everything else on there for you to watch on it, assuming the whole thing doesn't just die a death, which I don't think it will with the new laptop. It's working incredibly well on that. So yeah, the MIDI tutorial I will do next time. I'm doing a lot of talk about Lightroom. So maybe next Sunday, maybe on Wednesday I'll do a bit of it as well, but I'll make sure people get to see that properly over the next few weeks on there. Right, our Lightroom 3-minute edit challenge. For the benefit of the newbies, what the 3-minute Lightroom edit challenge is all about is I'm provided with a raw file, sight unseen, and I have 3 minutes to edit the image and to try and understand what the image is, what the intention is, do the edits in Lightroom against the clock. Not only that, but I challenge Rick Bradbury to do the same. And we both do them independently, so neither of us knows what the other is going to do to the image on there. And it's a great way to see how different people approach editing of images. Now, Rick's up first, and last week Gary sent me an image of Rick from, well, it was an image of a statue which looked incredibly like Rick on there. So I've that image didn't show him with any hair. Well, I've got an image of Rick with hair, taken a few years ago, I must admit, but this is what Rick looked like with hair. So yeah, he has seen that one in the past. Oddly enough, it's one image on Facebook that I had more comments on than any other. But yeah, that was Rick with hair. Basically, it's a wig, in case you haven't guessed, on there. Right, let's get into the 3-minute challenge. Enough of me making fun of Rick and his hairdo on there. So here we go. Rick's edit comes up first. So over to Rick.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another Lightroom edit video. My name is Rick Bradbury. I'm recording this ready for this evening's entry, so thank you very much, Dimitri, for sending this in. I believe this is number 4 of yours, so thank you for sending all these in. Right, let's take a look. Oh, I don't need my timer. I do this all the time. There we go. 3 minutes on the clock, and let's go. So, here we go. Into Lightroom. I'm going to do a reset on this. Nothing happened. Okay, cool. I have got the raw file. I thought for a moment there I'd grab the JPEG. Whew, right. So let's see. We have a picture taken in, I think this is Italy. I could be wrong. Yeah, that's Italy. Right. Okay. Let's see what we have here. So it's a street, well, not really a street photo per se, but a building photo, cityscape photo, if you will. Obviously shot in portrait orientation, and it's a longer exposure because we have the light trails from a vehicle. I don't know whether it was a car, a scooter, what it was, but there it goes through the image. So let's see what we can do here. Now, I've wasted a minute already. Right, okay. So we'll go lens corrections. Now, this was shot at ISO 100 and it's a 10-second exposure f22. Okay, all right, got some feedback on that in a bit. I'm going to back off the color noise reduction a little bit, give it a little bit of luminance color noise reduction. Yeah, a little bit of reduction. Go, not with it, right. And we're going to lift the exposure a touch. Let's go to Adobe Standard, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of shadows, a little bit on the highlights. We're going to go to the curves, do a little bit of work in there. Oh, laptop's struggling. I've got a bit of a problem with this laptop at the minute where it keeps locking up, so hopefully it won't do it during recording these things. Here we go. Don't want to have to buy a new one. Right. Increase the blacks a little bit, do a little bit of global contrast. Probably a little bit more on the shadows, and I'm going to keep it warm, 3200 thereabouts. Looks good, and it does appear to need just a little bit of straightening, just a touch. There we go. That may have been too much. Man, that's it. Yeah, about there. There you go. Right, and we shall sharpen this. Where are we? So masking, detail, radius, and we'll sharpen this. Ooh, that may be too much for this file. And then we're going to go a little bit of texture, little bit of texture, just a touch of clarity. And we are good. Oops. We are good to go. There we go. So we've got the before my, that thing goes off. There we go. It's like your alarm clock in the morning. You just don't want to hear it, right? And so before, after, before, and after, before and after. So see a bit of a change on the lens correction profiles, just a slight tweak on the straightening and some curve work. As usual with me, I don't do a whole ton to images necessarily in editing. There are some images I'd like to do more to, but limited time. And it's just some basic corrections and then some sharpening. But there we go. Right, we'll hand back to Ian in the studio, but I shall be back shortly to give some thoughts and some further feedback on this image. So over to you, Ian.
Hi, right, okay, welcome back. Yeah, a little bit of loss of sound in that as it was going out. And so I heard it right at the beginning, but that was the only time I heard it. There was maybe a slight stutter later on, but there was a gap of about 3-5 seconds at the beginning in the sound. Now, that was local. I don't know whether that's on the video or not. I'll have to play the video back with the recording and check that out. It'll be interesting to see whether it happens on my recording, which will be the next one up in a while when I show you my thing. So I don't know the exact cause of it, but it's certainly at this end rather than your end, folks, for that. Okay, let's move on to our theme for the night, which is flowerscapes. So what is a flowerscape? Well, a flowerscape is really a scene that's made up almost entirely of flowers. That's the basic definition of a flowerscape. And what do they look like? Well, I mean, typically it's multiple flowers and it fills the frame with flowers. That's what I would mean by a flowerscape. And I'm also going to look at some other suggestions for photographing flowers as well as part of this, but I'll do it in two halves. I'll look at the flowerscapes now, and then a little bit further on I'll come back and we'll look back at how you photograph flowers and give you some advice and tips on that and things to think about when you're doing flower photography. So, right, this is typically a flowerscape. It's technically a flowerscape. It's an image that's just consisting of flowers. It's not brilliant. We can do much, much better than that. We can do something like that. Now, this is more what I mean by flowerscapes, where we've got shallow depth of field with this foreground and background bokeh, this out of focus areas to the image, but we've got one part of the image that is in sharp focus there. So another view might be something like this. And that item that's in sharp focus we refer to as being the hero within the image. And that's what you need to think about when doing a flowerscape shot. You need to find your hero. So in this image, now can I do it with the pointer? Yes, my pointer's a little bit more responsive on here. My hero's round this sort of area of the image, the flowers there, with the foreground out of focus and the background out of focus. So that's what you're looking for, using a shallow depth of field to isolate one flower and let the foreground and background go out of focus. So let's show you a few more on this here with some harebells, and quite clearly our hero is this one on the 1/3 line on there. Where the others going out of focus in the background, a little bit in the foreground as well, but we've got one image, one flower that our eye is drawn to. That's our hero for the shot, and that's the sort of thing we should be looking for when creating a flowerscape shot. So for example, again with this one, our hero is right on the back of this clump that's in the foreground, which gives us this lovely bokeh effect in the background. And maybe I should have taken cropped it in just slightly on there, because really we ought to be just the flowers on the shot. Now here's a slightly more unusual one, because this one works in the opposite through 90 degrees, because our foreground is here and our background is on the side. It's because these ferns, this grass, was coming out of the side of a building, but we've still got this same effect of a flowerscape, the out of focus background, the slightly out of focus foreground, and the sharper midground on there. Again, similarly with this cotton grass. Now this is one way of doing it. If you go with sort of F8, your standard sort of shot, you get something like this. Yes, you've got out of focus in the foreground, you've got out of focus in the background, but it's a bit meh on there. We can do better than that. So this version of it at f2.8, you can see this. I much prefer this with that area of bokeh, that blurring right out into the distance on there. A little bit in the foreground, right in this corner. I should have got a little bit lower down. And that's the other tip with this, is don't shoot from high up looking down on the flowers, shoot along and through them. And that gives you that depth of field, that out of focus foreground, that out of focus background on the image. Right, so that's the Flowerscapes, and what I mean by Flowerscapes and a few hints and tips on there. Before I play in my my version of the 3-minute challenge, just to sort of say a couple of things that I hadn't got on the slides about Flowerscapes, which just sort of occurred to me as we were going through, is that if you're shooting with a compact camera or a phone, you're going to struggle to get that shallow depth of field. It's even harder with a crop frame sensor. So the smaller your sensor, the harder it is to get a very shallow depth of field. What will help is zooming in and coming further back. That foreshortening effect that we've looked at in the past, that will help you get a narrower depth of field on there if you haven't got control of your aperture in the same way as you would have on a DSLR or a mirrorless full frame camera. So just think about that. Right, back to our 3-minute edit challenge. Let me play in my video and let's see how the sound copes on this one. Hello, I'm back with another 3-minute Lightroom edit challenge. And this time without doing any preparation on the image beforehand to do an edit. So let's get the timer started and see what we can do. Right, the timer's going, so let's go over to the develop module and have a look at what we've got here. Right. I've got one which is the image and one that's the finished one of Dimitri's by the looks of it. Right, CR2, that's the one I want. I'm going to go full screen so you can see what's going on. Right, it's a night shot. It's a little bit on the dark side. So let's start off with the usual lens corrections. Always make sure you've got your lens corrections in there. Right, immediate thoughts on this, taken too late at night. So basic, bring the exposure up, see what we can recover from it. We've got to go a long way to recover some of those. Don't like that. Bring the shadows up. That's helping. Oh, hate the colour on it. Can I take out some of that? That'll help a little bit. Right. Clarity, bring the clarity up a little bit. Those highlights, I've got blown out highlights, try and recover those. That's helped a bit. Right, I need to make sure that it is, not lens corrections, I want transform. Click in the right place, try auto, I've got 1.5 minutes left. Yes, that's helped with this one. Now, crop on here. Let's have a look at focus on it. Oh, it's a bit noisy, so before I think about crop, I'm going to do some noise reduction on it. Often need to do that with night shots. Zoom in so I can see whether it's been effective. Oh, that's gone blurred. Oh no, it was just resolving it. Right, bring the radius up a little bit. I tend to go over aggressive with my sharpening, and then to mask it out, hold the Alt key. Bring it up until just the edges are showing. I've got less than 1 minute left on here. So quite aggressive on the masking. That's a lot better. A little bit more of the noise reduction on there. That's looking good. Now the crop. Let's have a look. I kind of like these lead-in lines at the bottom. I might be just tempted to lose a little bit of it. Oh, I don't know. I'm a bit concerned about that flare on the top there. Yeah, I don't want to lose anything else. No, I'm going to go back to the full crop on there, and I've got 10 seconds. I'm not going to manage it. I was going to try and paint out the lens flare. So that's going to have to be my edit for this one as the timer goes, and let's cancel that. Yeah, this was a tricky one, largely because I would say it was created a little bit too late at night on there. I don't like the lens flare on here from the lamp that's not in the shot. Love it on the others, but those I don't. And what I was going to try and do was to try and remove that with an adjustment brush. Let me see whether I can do it quickly on here. Adjustment brush, and I'm going to take the highlights right down with it. So hopefully it's just going to affect that area, and that didn't do it. So what about the exposure? If I just gradually bring the exposure down on that. What's the overlay like? Yeah, it's just affecting that part. I'm going to just zoom in, and not too bad actually. I'm reasonably happy with that. Just a little sort of bonus edit that I just ran out of time on doing. Anyway, that's as much as I can do in my allotted time. I'll give you some more feedback on this later in the show. So back to me in the studio. Right, okay, we're back. Yeah, something funny happened with the video. It stuttered at the beginning, and then the sound was out of sync on that. I'm wondering, I can possibly guess what it is. What you won't know, or some of you may know, is that with my previous laptop, I had a disc. I'm not sure whether this is going to reach. Yeah, this disc was attached by Velcro to the back of the old laptop, and that's my video editing disc. Now, because I've not wanted to put Velcro on the back of the new laptop straight away, I've just I got it on an extended cable, but I've run it via the powered hub, and I suspect going through the hub is probably too much for it, and I ought to have it plugged into the actual laptop directly for that, or better still, copy the resultant videos onto the internal disk for streaming them. I suspect that's where the problem is. So I suspect we'll have the same problem, the same thing happen on the third and final video, which will be Rick giving his feedback on there. So my apologies for that. We will get that sorted. Such other things which happen when you're trying out new gear on there. So let's have a look what's going on in chat on here. Gary is saying, what, no vignette? And asking whether I'm feeling okay. Yes, I am feeling fine. Not every photo needs a vignette on there. I know it's a bit of a running gag about me always putting vignettes on there, but that's the proof that I don't do it all the time. Only when I think it will help on there. Now, Terry was saying audio not in sync with video. Is that just the pre-recorded 3-minute challenge, or is it now? Let me just do a clap check just so that you can tell me. So 3, 2, 1. Right, if somebody can tell me whether that was in sync. I think the live is in sync. I think the only thing which was out of sync was the pre-recorded video, bizarrely, on there. So I'll see what happens on that. Meanwhile, still audio video sync issues, right, even with the live. How far out is it, Terry, on that? Because that's a little bit annoying for a new laptop, or maybe it's the internet connection, I don't know. Looking at the stats I've got up here, we've got no dropped frames on it. Everything's looking good on the stats. Gary's saying it's in sync for him. Kev saying not a sync. Andy saying spot on. Sorry, Terry, your problem then. Wow. Terry saying the video for him is 4 seconds behind. Terry, I suggest what you do is if you close your browser, come out of YouTube, come back in, and then see whether it's in sync at that point. That's the only thing I can suggest on there. Right, yes, just refresh the browser and it was all fine. Something weird going on. It's definitely something weird going on with that tonight, and I don't think it's my end if some of you are staying in sync for once. For once, it's not my end. Right, let's carry on with what we're looking at. Let's turn attention to your images this time. And I've got some images from Gary. So these are all flower images and flowerscape images. So some of them I'll give some comments on. Some I just want to say nice image because that's what it is. And this one of Gary's is a nice image. It's definitely a flowerscape image, just a frame filled with flowers, all in focus. My only suggestion, Gary, is, as I was saying earlier, about shooting through the flowers rather than from above with them. You might get a more interesting shot on that. This one, however, is absolutely spot on to go from above because it's a repetition image and all the tulips are in perfect focus, and that green-pink effect on there is absolutely wonderful on that. Really like this shot. Thanks for sharing it in the Facebook group. And just to explain for anyone who doesn't know, these are all images from the Facebook group that people have shared during the week. And I've just realized something. I had the wrong display up. Let me go back so you can see the images I was talking about. Yeah. This is the trouble with having too many different things going on. Right, sorry about that, folks. This is the first one I was talking about of Gary's. Nice image, all filled with flowers, but shoot through. And then the other one, the pink and green, where you can see the tulips from above. Sorry about that, folks. Slightly distracted because of this problem with the sync on there. Great shot with the daffodils from below, and not only one of the reasons I picked this out because it's a better version of one of the shots I'm going to show you in the next part of the video. I did something similar, but Gary has done a better shot of it than mine on there. So right, hopefully you've all got the images now. Another one of Gary's, snowdrops, all filling the frame except that little bit at the top, and I would suggest a slight crop on it. I'm hoping you're all seeing the images now. I've not had anybody say that they are there. Yeah, love the daffodils. Good, they are there. I would suggest a crop round about here so that the frame is completely full of the snowdrops without the little black bit at the top on there. Just a minor tweak to it. But I love this sort of large in the foreground going away, that distortion effect from using a relatively wide angle lens on there. And yet another from Gary, two dandelion clocks. There's a couple of dandelion clocks in tonight's selection. And I really liked this. Again, an unusual view looking down on them. It looks like some of the ends of them are missing, but having tried to photograph these myself in the past, I know if you focus part way through them, this is the effect you get. The little fronds on the top just disappear. So quite a nice effect on there. Oh, right, we have a question from Gary. Signature file on images or none? What do we think? Right, I will try and pick up on that one later If I get to the Q&A and I've forgotten about it, somebody stick it back in at that point, please. Right, Andy submitted some, and I like this one for capturing the bee in a bee in action on there, and nicely timed on there, cracking shot. Nothing much to say about it other than that on that one. Another nice one from Andy with the lilies. I think they're lilies. I would suggest with this, again, a little bit of a crop at the top. I don't think the area at the top is adding much to it unless you're using that for text. I would have said a crop round about this line, just above the top lily, would perhaps help that image on there. So maybe if you tilted the camera down slightly to get a little bit more at the bottom in on the shot on that one, Andy. This one from Anthony Barker, nice shot, and what I like about this is that the line of flowers will lead you in to the image on there. What I would suggest with this one, Anthony, is, I don't think you're online, I don't know whether you're going to catch it on the rerun, but hopefully you catch it on the rerun. I would have just framed it slightly to the left, because I think this bit over here is more interesting than the dark area here. The flowers over there aren't really adding that much, and that one's pulling away. So a sort of tighter crop maybe here, so that in like that would work, or just moving the camera over so we've got a little bit more over on this side so that the flowers aren't there, they're more on the third line over this side would be my suggestion for that one. But nice shot, and thank you for including it in the Facebook group on there. John Kiss, thank you for submitting this one. John's a new member to the Facebook group. I know he's been watching some of the live streams. I quite like this. I've got a question for you, John. I don't know whether you're watching live, and whether you've got the chance or the ability to post in the live chat, but this image looks as though it's been compressed that way. I don't think it has, but it looks like it. But that's just because of the angle that you're shooting on the flowers, which gives a really unusual effect with it, which I like. So well done. And the fact that this image is on a third line over here, we've got a third line going along there, third line across the top. It ticks all the boxes for composition as well with it. And that's in focus, a nice bit of foreground out of focus to go with it. So great shot. Peter submitted this one, which is a close-up inside one of the flowers. Peter, I like this. I've just got one slight suggestion for it. This light area over on the left-hand side is drawing my eye away from the center. So I would have just moved the camera over a little bit to crop that out. Or if I couldn't crop it out in camera, I would have cropped in post-production just to lose it. I'd rather lose a little bit along there and maybe even a little bit along the top to get rid of that white area because I think it pulls the eye too far over to the top left on it. Another one from Peter, as I was saying, dandelions do make a good appearance on here, and I've commented on the Facebook group about this one. I really do like this, the dying dandelion. It has something about it, sort of time passing, time up and things like that, the dandelion clock with it. The fact that it's on a 1/3 line, we've got a nice strong diagonal in there and some nice negative space as well. I think potentially we could have lost a little bit at the top, just a fraction off there, but that's a nitpick. It really is one of the best images I've seen from you, Peter, that you've posted. So one to be proud of, well done with it. And so my suggestions are just nitpicks, something to try and take the photography to the next level. And looking down on this one now, when I do my next section on flowers in a few moments' time, you'll see that I've done a few like this, but I've tended to go for a square crop with them. And I think square crops, when you've got a pure circular image like that, really works well for the subject. So consider doing that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but I think this is the same effect as the dandelions, where it appears as though there is nothing at the top section as we look down on it, but I think that's purely to do with depth of field on the flower on there. It's a nice effect, well captured on that. This one's quite unusual, isn't it? I picked it up because I can't work out what that creature is. I assume some nasty buglet. I thought it was a spider, but it's only got 6 legs. So I don't know quite what it is, but a really good capture on there. Well done. Right focusing to focus on the creature on there, and within the shape of the flower. Works really well. And finally, one from Peter that he posted. He was trying to, I think he was trying to make a joke on this. When I was asking for Flowerscapes, he was saying, yep, I've got flowers. They're in the bottom corner here, and that's a landscape. But it's an interesting shot, and I know you put it up so lightheartedly, Peter, but just a couple of things to say about it. You were talking about lead-in lines with it. This technically, to me, isn't a lead-in line. It's a lead-out line, because it takes you from here and takes you out of the image, rather than a lead-in line normally comes from one of the corners and brings you in towards the center, towards your subject. So that's taking us away from anything on there. Composition-wise, I don't think it's as strong as some of the others. What you could have potentially done with it is I would have got down close to the flowers on there, or I would have put that vanishing point of the road more towards the third line there, so that the road is leading you towards that destination rather than the edge. But the cloud capture is nice on there. So I did say I'd give you a bit of feedback on the show with that. So there you go, Peter. Oh yes, I've still got one from Tim. I thought the one from Peter was the last one. Thanks for submitting this, Tim. I know you submitted a couple this week. Tall, thin shot. As I said on Facebook, I think the choice of background, I think you just need to take a pace over to the left, so that the tree background is behind the, is it a foxglove? I think it's a foxglove. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. So that you've got the darker background behind it, because this, my eyes going towards it and going, oh, what is it? What am I looking at there? Whereas that more patterned background, I think, is a better background for the flower to be against. So slight move to the left on that one, on there. Right, I'm going to come back to my talking about photographing flowers. I've got another section a little bit later about some of the non-flower images which were posted to the group during the week, and I'll give a bit of feedback and comments on those. So let's look at how we photograph individual flowers on there. Oh, it's a lupin. Yes, of course it's a lupin. I should have recognised that. Yeah. Now, this isn't a true flowerscape, although I've kept the title of Flowerscapes throughout on this, just for consistency. Shallow depth of field, and it's using this idea of keeping just one of the, in this case, teasels, so dead flowers, in focus, and allowing the other two to drop out of focus. I think that makes the image work that way. That it gives a depth to the image by doing it like that. And here, another case of isolation where we're isolating one single bluebell. I've stuck it on a third line. I've used a very shallow depth of field. And again, as I was saying earlier, if you're shooting with a compact camera or shooting with an iPhone, you'll find this quite tricky to achieve on there, to isolate with the depth of field. But if you can control your depth of field, shallow, which is basically the widest aperture or the smallest f number to do it, you can get this sort of effect. Now, it's worth noting there were other bluebells in this scene, but I chose to frame it in such a way that only one bluebell was in the shot. Now, thinking about flowers, one of the things we tend to do when we're shooting flowers, we try to get just about the whole flower in, as I've done here with this daisy. And I've got the shallow depth of field. So where do I focus? I focus on the center of the flower with that. But actually, we don't necessarily need to have the whole flower in there. Because sometimes if you go in tighter, it's actually a stronger composition. Yeah, I'm still focusing on the center, but cropping off the tips of the flower, the petals all the way round, can give quite a strong composition. Because what we achieved here, we've now got lead-in lines all drawing us into the center of the flower. So that gives us a much I think a stronger composition than the previous image that I showed on there. Again, sometimes you just get lucky when you're doing flower photography. The bee arrived as I was focusing on here. Now, I think I'd have liked the eyes in focus on this. Didn't quite manage it, but it's nice to see the veins on the wings of the bee, and you can see all the sort of nectar or pollen that it's gathered on its hind legs there, the big orange clumps of it, which I'm quite pleased with on that. Right, filling the frame entirely. I said just cropping edges of it, but let's go completely. And when you do something like this with a rose, we were talking earlier about finding the hero in your shot. Well, it's no longer a hero flower, it's a hero petal, and mine's here round the 1/3 line on this side. That's my hero petal round there, and that gives something to focus on, and the eye comes out to see the sea of pink on there. So don't be afraid to come in really, really close with your flower photography. Now, another thing, this is what I was saying about the square crops and how square crops really can work with these sort of circular flowers. So here we have a cactus dahlia, it was called, but does it have to be in colour? Now, we think of flower photography and we always think of the colour of the flowers, but actually, sometimes black and white can be just as effective, if not more so. And I prefer the black and white version for this, because it all then becomes about the tones, the light and dark of the image on there. So let's show you a couple more. Stillwater Becky dahlia. Again, I've come in really tight on it, and I've created this almost filling the frame effect. So we've got an arc over the top, this shape over here, and then cropped off at the bottom. It's nice in colour, but when it's in black and white, it becomes about the texture of the flower, and the texture shows up much more in the black and white on there. So I really like the effect on that. And another one, this one, because of it being yellow, I chose to leave everything up on the bright end of it, and with the black and white conversion, even the red orange, I chose to make them quite light, so it's high key texture image. Again, filling the frame, it becomes a pattern, an abstract on there. And as I said about the daffodil shot earlier, which I really liked, this shooting below, always think about pulling the camera down below and looking up. We see the world from above looking down, but if you put the camera below and look up, you get a much more different view, and it causes the viewer to go, oh, I don't normally see the world like that. So consider doing worm's eye view when shooting flowers. And of course, if you can get the dew on there, the early morning dew, it just makes the flower that little bit more interesting to look at in the image. And of course, if you're like me, don't get up early in the morning, you can always think about using a plant sprayer to do it instead, which is what I did there. Right, okay, so back to our 3-minute Lightroom challenge. This is Rick's feedback on Dimitri's image. And let's see whether the video stutters on this one. Okay, here goes nothing.
And here we are, back in Lightroom. Okay, so a little bit of feedback for you here, Dimitri, on this one. Thanks again for sending the image in. We have a leading line, which is this curb pavement side of the road leading down to the building at the end, which is fine. The line from the traffic trails there, I don't know, it feels kind of too high up in the frame. I know you can't like stop the car and tell them to, hang on, could you drive past a little lower down on the road, please? But it just feels a little bit too high up. And kind of works against it. I don't really know necessarily what it adds to it, because we've already got this leading line of the road, and then there's this sudden change in colour, going to red there versus the warmer orange tones and some blue tones towards the top of the building. Not 100% sure on that. I mean, granted, it's a 10-second exposure, so you could have been going, great, there's no vehicles coming, and then, there it is. Another thing is, you've shot this on a Canon 70D, I believe, from memory from the other images that you've sent in. 24-105, and you've shot this at f/22. That lens sucks at f/22. No matter what camera you put it on, it just does. It doesn't handle it well, it falls apart. It's good enough wide open. 5.6 is fine, f8, f11 is fine, f16 nudging towards at an absolute push if you have to, but I wouldn't really want to go to f22 on that. Plus, you're on a crop sensor camera, f22, and we're well into diffraction territory, so it just softens the overall image. Granted, when you're on a tripod, with the shutter open for 10 seconds, it needs to be a very solid tripod, no bumps, no traffic going by. I don't think that did much, but heavy traffic going by, no wind to get a steady, stable shot. So you've got that element of it. Make sure your image stabilizer's off. I think I've said that before in a previous edit, but f22, just don't feel that it's needed. It actually hurts the image quality more than really that it helps. Yes, are there times when you have to do that for depth of field, but when this shot, we could have got away, with f11 and a shorter exposure. Granted, if you're wanting to get the trails, that may have worked against you there, but we'd have had a sharper image. But overall, I don't mind it. I can see the edge of a light starburst there. Now, one thing you do get when you do stop a lens down, and we still see this at f11, maybe a bit less, so you get the starburst effect. Maybe that's what you wanted as well, which is fair enough. Now we can see the edge of the building there just a little bit. Probably do a bit of local brush work just to bring that up. I don't want to raise all the shadows of everything because it will bring a bit of noise into the image. At that point, even at ISO 100. Another thing, actually, if you're doing longer exposures, sometimes, especially if you're doing a range of longer exposures, or say multiple ones, where you're doing a longer exposure for 10 seconds, then going again for another 10 seconds, going again for another 10 seconds, it's sometimes better to actually shoot at a higher ISO, so ISO 200, for example, and run shorter exposures for an equivalent exposure at that ISO, exposure reciprocal, and then you let the sensor stay cooler, it doesn't heat up, doesn't introduce any kind of noise. So you may find you may actually get, as daft as it sounds, slightly better image quality out of a slightly higher ISO. Obviously, again, opening up the aperture so we're not dealing with diffraction there also. It's an interesting looking building, that certainly. I don't know anything about it, I must admit, so it'll be interesting to know about maybe where it is, what the building is, and what's inside. Is it a museum? It looks like it's been there for quite a while, but very, very interesting. Obviously, we've got a white van down there. Dude, you just had to show up, didn't you? Anyway, not much we can do about that when you're out in the streets. But thank you very much for sending that in. I hope the feedback's helped. And for now, we will go back to the studio, ready for Ian.
Okay, right. Yeah, we had that problem with the sound right at the beginning, dropping out, and then the sound was out of sync by a couple of seconds throughout. Right, which proves one thing: it's consistent, which means I know there's a problem to solve. I suspect it's because I'm running the disk through a hub rather than direct. So I'll do some testing during the week so that won't be a problem next week. I promise. I'll have that one sorted on there. The fact that it's repeatable means I can solve it. So my apologies for that issue on that. Right, okay, my feedback on the image. I'm not going into Lightroom because I want to really just try and run things as simple as possible with the new setup. So I wasn't going to try having Lightroom running or anything like that whilst for this first time out with running OBS on here and streaming on it. So I think Rick's covered most of the bases on the image. I like the subject. It's St. Peter's in Rome, if you're watching this, Rick. It's, you know, the biggest, most famous church in the world. Yeah, nice view of it. I like the idea of the light trails, and yeah, you do need that long exposure to get them. I think it was still being taken too late in the day, because if it had been photographed, and I think everyone's expecting this comment because I keep making it on all the night shots that get posted on the Facebook group. There is a magic 20-minute window that starts 20 minutes after the official sunset time in the UK. And it's at that point, you're balancing the fading daylight with the artificial light, which gives you that really deep blue sky, and you can still see the details. Now, on the dome of the image that Rick was pointing to, having to try and bring out the detail on there, if you'd shot at that time, you'd still be able to see that. So that would have been visible with it. So that's my big recommendation for that shot. I think the angle on it is great. The light trails on there are fine, just wrong time of day. That's the main takeaway for me for that particular image. So let's move along with this, and let's look at some of the other images which are posted on the Facebook group this week and give a little bit of feedback on them. And we've had a lot of submissions this week, really great shots. I quite like this one from Andy. I don't think Andy's watching tonight, but I'd love to know whether the slight warm tone on it was intentional or not. I think it works. But I don't know whether that was done in post-production deliberately or whether the white balance was incorrectly set and Andy's just gone, you know what, I like that, I'm leaving it on there. But I do like that light, that slightly warm tone to the whole thing on that image. Quite a few from John this week. I've picked out a few. This one up in the Lake District, I like the reflection of the tree. The one thing I would pick up on with this is if you'd have crouched down more, John, that branch would have been above the mountain, whereas it's colliding with it. And that, I think, is a bit of a distraction. So just choose the angle, or maybe move to one side so that there was a gap there between the tree and the mountain. And so try and find that, and I think that would have made it a stronger image. I don't know what you use for editing, but actually it's difficult to tell on here now, but it almost looks as though the hills just need the shadows bringing up very slightly on there. For that shot. This one I do like of John's, and I've told him this on the forum, this reflection, the top and bottom of it, a puddle in Blackpool, that's a sort of well spotted capture, that using that repetition, that mirroring of the two parts to it works well. This one, the figure looking out the window, I'd be intrigued to know whether the person was happy to be photographed or not. The one thing I'd avoid is sticking him in the middle there. I would put him over to one side, probably lose this end of the brickwork and have more of that, so that he got space to look into, as it were, on there, rather than having him in the middle. So his head, instead of being there, frame it so that the head was around about here, just that little bit further over, and I think that would have helped that. But converting to black and white certainly works with the image on that. And a final, I think this is the last one of John's that I chose. I like the silhouette on this. What I don't like is the person over here right on the edge of the frame. And I think a little bit of a crop in post-production just to lose them, or just to clone them out in post-production, would have helped that image. Or I would probably have framed it so instead of this spiral being bang in the middle, it was more over on the third line. So this edge, you can see where that will come down here and have a bit more negative space over on this side. On there, I think would have helped with that that particular image. From Andy, I have to show this one. Unfortunately, you really need to see the full res version on the Facebook group for this. An eagle in the rain. You can see the rain falling, and this just drop on the end of there, and the whole image is tack sharp. That is just a cracking shot, Andy, and I had to include it because it was just so good. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really impressed with it. And the fact that the eagle is looking out of the frame is almost, we're looking at it going, what's going through its mind? Is there will this rain never end? Or has it got sight of its next meal or something like that? Really like it. Well done on that. Richard, I saw him in the chat earlier, has been travelling up round Scotland and posted a couple of his wildlife shots. A red squirrel, a wonderful capture of a red squirrel. It's a shame about the branch that it's on, but I know there's nothing you could have done about that. But it's a good capture of it. On there, as is the one of the badger. Although I have to say, that badger looks way too clean. It looks almost as though it's a stuffed animal that you've put there for the shot. But I trust that it's the real thing. But yeah, lovely shot that you've captured. And putting it on the 1/3 line works. We've got the foreground out of focus there, which gives us the depth to the image as well on that. So it's a nice shot with that. Tim, back to your images. Now, I did leave some feedback on this one. I like the concept of these. I've done it myself, but I think you can take this to the next level. I think it's a good shot. Don't get me wrong. I think it is a good shot, but I think there are other things that you could do with this. In particular, can you we see that vanishing point is about 1/3 away from the top part of it and 2/3 from the bottom. That's because of where Tim was when he took the photo. If you moved over and put the vanishing point over here, oh, excuse me, and moved over to the side so that the vanishing point is over here, I think that would have been much more interesting rather than having it in the center, and then maybe crop it as a square image like that. Or the other one that you can do is tilt the camera on an angle, so you've got that Dutch angle with it, rather than trying to get everything parallel on there. And again, just a different way of photographing the same subject. It's nice exposure. This top section doesn't do anything for me, so I'd have been cropping below that, I think, for me. But try, if you go back to this sort of location, just try those couple of variants with it, which I think will just give you a different take on it, and then see what you think. Another one from Tim. He was saying this was on tripod, and it's all about, he was trying to experiment with freezing the water and blurring the water, and spotted this pile of stones. I think it's an interesting shot. Again, I think cropping on it might help. I don't think the top is adding much to it, so I think we could afford to come down maybe a little to about here. And this is one of those speeds where the water's neither frozen nor that true candy floss flow on there. So I suspect, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, that you got sidetracked with the pile of pebbles and stopped thinking about the water. I suspect if this was taken half a second exposure, just to give a much more of a flowing effect to it, it would have been a stronger image. And maybe in landscape format, with a little bit more of the water over here on the left-hand side of the image, would work well with that. But nice capture, nice idea, nice concept with it. Even if you did go landscape, I'd keep the pile of stones on the 1/3 line, as you have done on this. Amanda, who I think it's Amanda's first time on the live stream, certainly a new member to the, I think you're a fairly new member to the group, but this shot that she shared, I can't really show you the I think on here. Go look at it on the Facebook group and zoom in. What makes this shot work are the expressions on the two entertainers on there. This comes from Amanda was on the same cruise that I was lecturing on around South America. She went on one of the trips in Peru to see the horsemen and the show that they do, and this is one of the shots from there. But if you zoom right in on their faces, they both have this brilliant grin, and that's really what makes the image work. Now, Amanda, I've seen you've posted this image on a different Facebook group, the cruising group that we're both members of, and you cropped it in tightly on both sides, which was exactly what I was going to say this image needs, and you'd already done it. So that's my recommendation. The tighter crop, maybe lose a little bit in the foreground here, a little bit at the top, and just either side of there, and allow the motion and the emotion of the image to speak, and you've got a really nice shot there. So well done with it. It will just be even stronger with that tighter crop, which I think you already know because you've already done it on the other group, but worth talking about on here. So well done, and thank you for sharing it on there. Oh dear, I've miscaptioned this. That's not James Bissett at all. This is Rick Bradbury, who was sharing photographs of lights on the group. And he's not on I don't think he's watching because he's not on the chat on there. I was going to say I think a charcoal grey background rather than a black background for it, but actually a useful set of images anyway to show the equipment on there with that. So I just wanted to share them. And if you want to see how he's lit something like this, for those of you who do a lot of studio work, have a look on the Facebook group, because he's put some of the behind the scenes images on there as well. So if you ever see this, if you ever watch it, Rick, thanks for sharing them. Right, Q&A live. Let's go and have a look at the chat. Now, I can't scroll back with what's on the screen there. I can scroll back on here. We had one question, which was all about putting signatures on images. And I tend to, on anything I put online, I have my logo and copyright in Butterfield, and the words "no use permitted without prior permission." Yep, and Gary has just said signatures on files on images. I do that because, well, a lot of my images are ones which are for sale as stock. So by doing that, it gives me a better chance of finding any misused images. I also know that if I see the image without the watermark, it's been purchased as a stock image. So if I'm not seeing it on my account there, I can chase up the stock library for it. So I do it for that. It does protect in a limited sort of way. A signature down in the bottom corner, it just means that if somebody's going to remove your copyright on that, they've actually got to go to the trouble of cropping it out. It won't stop them doing it, but the fact that if you put something on there and if you had to contest it at any point and they've actively cropped it out, then they can't argue that they didn't know it was copyright, because they've taken the copyright message off there. So yes, try and find a signature that works well with your images, maybe not too large. I've seen various variants on this. Tim, in some ways I quite like what Tim does. He puts it on there so faint that you don't notice it until you look for it, and it's there on that. I make sure mine is very visible because I'm trying to advertise myself as a photographer and as a trainer and a tutor. So I want people to see images with my name on it. So for me, it's advertising. If I was doing prints though, for sale, no, I wouldn't put my my logo and my signature on there. I will sign them. If I sign an image, I tend to sign the frame on it. I will sign the actual image. It's down to what a person wants on there. Most people don't want my signature on them, so I don't bother. So mixed feelings. What do other people think? Do others put a signature watermark on there? Oh, one thing to say. There is a tendency at the moment for these faux signature ones where people, the Fiverr or whatever, you can get somebody to design a signature look to it. Those were fantastic when they first came out, and they really set the images apart. However, every man and his dog has gone down the same route now, so that sort of approach doesn't stand out. So you'll notice that my images that I've been posting recently have gone completely the other way. I've tried to move away from anything that looks like a signature to just my name in bold block text. It's the same text that I use for the YouTube thumbnails and things like that. So I've gone a slightly different route because I want mine to stand out from the crowd. I want to be different from the crowd. So if you're going to those faux signatures, make sure that it's obviously different to what everybody else is doing, because the ones where you just pay somebody to create one for you, they are starting to look pretty much of a muchness these days. So just be aware of that. So moving on. Let's wrap it all up. We've run out of time, folks. So I want to just say thank you everyone for watching, 20 odd people and 1 or 2 normal people. Sorry. Thanks to Rick for doing the 3-minute challenge, and for Dimitri for submitting the image. And thanks to you all for putting images in the Facebook group for me to talk about this week. It's been great to see so many images, so please keep submitting them on there. And I'll finish with my usual request. Don't forget to subscribe. If you've not subscribed to me here on YouTube, please do so, and then you'll get notification of all the future events like this. Comment if you're watching this on replay. Comment on any of the videos you watch, because that will help me. If you want to help me, that's one way you can do it. The other way you can help me is to hit that like button. I know you want to. Right, we've got 12 likes and 20 viewers. There's 8 of you not liking this. On this. Oh, right. I've just had one other comment come in on the chat. Michael saying, and it's a fair point. He's saying, don't use your real signature on there. Yeah, it's a fair point on that one. I will use my real signature if I'm signing something for a final image, a physical item, because I haven't got a faux autograph signature yet on there. But for online, no, not the real signature, definitely not on that. So yeah, do hit like on it. So next week, I'm going to do a feedback special. What I mean by that is, in the past I've had people do critiquing each other's images. I thought I'll do one a different way, and that's, whereas I was giving sort of quick feedback on images tonight, next week what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a handful of images, one's posted on the group this week and or submitted to me. If you want to submit a raw file, a finished edit, finished edit, do that. Just drop me an email or with the JPEG or whatever. I'm going to pick, so I can't guarantee to do everyone's. I'm going to pick a few, take them into Lightroom and talk a little bit more about them in a little bit more depth and look at some of the metadata on there and go that next stage in terms of feedback for you all. So that's what I'm going to do next week. If I can get things going, I'll also try and do the sensor cleaning as well as part of that one next week. So thanks for watching, and until next week, as ever, folks, keep making great photos, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Right, this is the point I need to film an alternative ending for when I do a cut down version of this. So this is that alternative ending. Thanks for watching this cut down version of In Studio Live. If you want to see the full version, it's now on My Academy. You can find out details how to join that up on the screen here. It's only £6 a month or £60 a year, and you get lots of resources, training resources, lighting sheets for studio work, inspiration sheets for travel photographers, Lightroom tutorials, all in there which are exclusive to the Academy, including access to me for more in-depth feedback and mentoring sessions, things like that. So go check that out if you want to find out more. So thanks for watching the cut down version, and I'll see you next time, hopefully on one of the full versions. So until then, keep making great photos. Bye for now.